country. Another great development is the fact that we are taking center stage and increasingly being recognized globally. We're seeing more African, Nigerian and African artists being recognized globally, from the Grammy Awards to the Billboard Music Awards, BET Awards, etc. For categories like, Afrobeats. Afrobeats is more and more becoming mainstream globally. For positions around international art, so new international artists, and even other categories as well. So more and more we're seeing that presence of African creative culture and art on the global stage. Now, there are a number of factors driving this growth. First and foremost, of course, is the fact that we just have our own innate creative potential. We're very creative people. We have a rich cultural heritage. We also have a large youth population. Over 70% of the population is less than 25 years old. And, with that comes a lot of, creative energy, digital savviness, and consumption on these platforms. It's great to see, policy, government leaning into the space, listening to the Honorable Commissioner earlier. It was great to hear about, the KITE project, the Innovation Fund, the Fund for Creators, and those types of interventions. They do go a long way. But overlaying all of this, a lot of the revolution that we're seeing is driven by technology. Marry the creative energy with the digital platforms that exist, and you have an explosion. We're seeing more internet users come online in Africa. The cost of smartphones have been going down, and so more people are able to afford smartphones, and that has made content creation really easy. I was sitting beside our dear Uche, the founder of Bella Niger, and I saw her with her phone actually recording content from this session. I'm sure in a few minutes we'll see all that content on Bella Niger, and it would look fabulous just using your phone. And that's what a lot of creators are using. That's why it's so easy to create content today, right? Because with your phone, you don't need huge production budgets, etc. With your phone, and there are all kinds of free editing software as well. You can be up and running for very little. And we also have a proliferation of digital platforms that make it possible to upload content, to broadcast that content, and also to monetize content. So, this digital revolution is really fueling the growth that we're seeing, especially when we think about scale. And digitization has transformed how we deliver content. On the left, those were real pictures from Alaba markets. I do remember around 2011, 2012, when we were just starting to onboard content creators onto the YouTube platform. We were working with people like Jason Njoku of Iroko TV, Afri Nolly, Real Nolly, Ben Murphy International, right? Those were the early people that were looking at digitizing Nollywood content and putting that online. We spent some time understanding the industry and also visiting the market. And I'm sure a number of you may remember, well, it depends on how old you are, but I think those that have been around for a while will recognize the pictures on the left. That was the state of Nollywood. That was the vehicle for delivering Nollywood content. But if you fast forward to today, we have this proliferation of platforms that enable streaming, content storage, and sharing, from Netflix to Apple TV, YouTube, etc. So even the way we deliver content has just really been transformed with these technology platforms. But, there's still a huge potential. We are just starting out when we think about the possibilities with technology in line with creativity. We're seeing emerging technologies really transforming the creative industries globally, and we're seeing evidence of that happening in Nigeria and across Africa as well. We're seeing more the use of drone technology for media production, film, TV. With some movies these days, we have fantastic aerial views of, say, Lagos, where you get a really nice view of the city. A lot of this is enabled by drone technologies. Artificial intelligence being used to personalize music and film preferences, and in some cases to actually create film, to create content, right? 3D printing to produce crafts when we think about our sculptures and arts and crafts. Augmented reality and virtual reality, different applications from fashion shows, featuring invisible models, to also just immersive experiences in gaming. Internet of Things, cloud computing, when we think about connectedness, storage, access to the digital platforms, and even blockchain technology, certifying the originality and ownership of unique artworks. So these are just some examples of the possibilities and the direction that the industry is approaching. We're also seeing a lot more collaborations and tech-enabled partnerships. It's great to see a lot of collaborations between our artists in Nigeria and across Africa, and global artists, Burna Boy and Coldplay, the South African designer, in the fashion space, partnering with Timbaland, Thames and Drake. These are some examples. And also, from an organization perspective, we're seeing, partnerships like streaming platforms partnering with telcos to be able to bring that content in a more cost-effective manner to users. We're seeing music channels and social media platforms collaborate. For example, Trace and TikTok, record labels and streaming platforms. So more and more we're seeing these experiences, these partnerships, this fusion, right, of our Afrobeats, our African culture and heritage with more contemporary music and content globally. And that's really expanding our influence and footprint on the globe. So it's great to see these developments. I mentioned that there's a large headroom for growth. We're still just scratching the surface. The creative economy, in real terms, should be contributing a lot more to our GDP. It should be the oil of this economy because it's something that we have innately as Nigerians. But there are some things that are required to be able to fuel that growth. One, of course, is broadband infrastructure and more broadly, access. Because when we're talking about streaming, that requires huge bandwidth. We're talking about data. When we talk about recording content, we're talking about affordable smart devices and smartphones. So everything in the bucket of access, initiatives that can help make access more available and affordable are very important. Investment in the creative sector. We heard Kunle Afolayan mention some things about that, right? Establishment of hubs, like I think it was CAP that he's created. It's great to hear that. And to hear the plans for a creative center in Lagos. These hubs are very important. In the tech space, they've been tried and tested as great ways to foster innovation, growth, creativity, and skill, right? Bringing like-minded people together, giving them access to world-class infrastructure, enabling knowledge sharing to just really help them to move from A to B, from idea to market. So a similar concept, because in many ways the creative economy is similar to the knowledge economy, right? And so, establishment of creative hubs would be really important. Mentoring and support for emerging creators I know we did, a lot of work just training people on things like how you digitize content, how you target, how you build an audience. You may have the creative talents. That's one part of it. It's just like like having a great idea. That doesn't mean you will run a successful business, right? So you may be creative, you may have some great ideas, but you need support. You need mentoring to be able to take that and make it something that has a wider appeal. There are techniques to building your audience. There are techniques to how you engage with digital platforms as opposed to traditional platforms. And so that mentoring and support cannot be taken for granted and is really important, and just really supporting, championing local businesses. One of the great things about when we talk about the African Renaissance, one of the great things is that there's a lot of local pride, right, in our content. Local fashion, local music, right, and our film. We have that sense of local pride. And so, more and more, we can provide that support for local content. Investment in human capital, that's really obvious, ensuring that we're nurturing creative talent and also helping to infuse digital literacy, right, in our curricula, and also, in different ways, learning hubs, just really supporting people around, maximizing digital. Access to finance and to global markets. That's a very important piece. It's great to see a number of events, some of them happening in Lagos, right? But across Africa, so, Afrochella, and a number of other events as well, Lagos Fashion Week. These are great for bringing attention, converging people who are interested in the industry, right, and showcasing the talents, the products that exist. So we should have more of these. They should be encouraged, right? Because, they become melting pots for investors, for creators, for, even solution providers, technology experts, etc. And then we can have a lot more growth. That can really stimulate the industry and facilitate access to wider markets. And the final thing there is local platform development, which I'll come to. But enabling policies, that goes without saying, intellectual property protection, promotion of cultural exchange, PR, our national PR, and also, financing. And it was great to hear some of the initiatives by the state in this regard, particularly around providing funding to the creative sector. Sorry, just one more thing in closing. So there's a lot of talk about the African Renaissance and the fact that this is Africa's decade. I do believe that this can be Africa's decade if we do the right things. And it's really important for us to start to look very consciously at how we can really take the potential, the creative talents, the seeds that we have, and scale them. What needs to happen? Where are those areas where we see opportunity to be able to go further? What are things we can do as individuals? So for everyone listening, if for example, you have a creative interest, be inspired by some of the numbers and the examples I just shared, and just go online and see what you can do with these platforms, right? Lean in and start to, and the more you, test things out, the more you're able to expand that. So that's on an individual level. But even on a broader level, on an institutional level, one of the things that, one of the observations is the fact that we have a lot of great global platforms, right? And they're fantastic. But something can be said for localized platforms that are built with the psychology of the local audience in mind. So for example, we see this a lot in Asia. There are platforms like WeChat, Kakao Talk, Snow, etc. WeChat has 1.3 billion users, just addressing the Asian market, right? Twitter, X, has 587 million users. Compare that to 1.3 billion, right? Of course, Instagram has about 2.3 billion. But the point I'm making is, it would be great to see more local platforms emerge that where, African content is front and center, naturally exposed, and that are built based on the psyche and the realities of this environment. And I think, there's a lot of potential, a lot of room for growth, and I think it's, when I look ahead, it's very exciting what's possible in the creative space in Nigeria and Africa. Thank you very much.
One more time, let's put our hands together again. Thank you so much, Dr. Juliet Ehimwa. It's now time for us to get prepared as we look forward to the second plenary session. And this will definitely, of course, instill in us the need for us to see how we can be of support to the creative economy. And it will focus on funding and, most importantly, investment opportunities. But first, we'll take a few messages from our sponsors as well.
Where traffic monitoring and enforcement is now in the digital age. This change for good is no thanks to Traffic Enforce, a highly scalable solution that uses an image processing technology, optical character recognition algorithm, and capturing plate number for intelligent vehicle and traffic management. Equipped with features like timestamp and GPS coordinates for historic search of detected plate numbers to ensure that enforcement of traffic offenders have no hiding place. Speed limits, dark patches, and the number of lanes can also be monitored by Traffic Enforce. The system's outputs can be expanded and shared with other authorized entities. For more information, call 0701 999 9339 or visit trafficenforce.ng or send an email to info@trafficenforce.ng. Traffic Enforce is a service powered by Plate Detect and brought to you by Soft Alliance. Hi, welcome to the future. Hi, welcome to the future.
Thank you very much, multimedia team. We'll still have time to play some more videos from our sponsors. We're moving swiftly to our second plenary session. And just as we had during the first plenary session, we'll have the lead discussants come and set the tone in 7 minutes or less. So I'm going to be the accurate timekeeper here because I know that today is already fast spent. We still have our breakout sessions as well as, I believe, a master class, if possible, and we'll conclude the event. And there's day 2, so we want you to get back to your destinations on time, wake up bright and early to come tomorrow for day 2 of Aot Lagos 5.0. So now like to invite our lead discussant for the second plenary session, which looks at creative economy, funding, and investment opportunities. I'd like to welcome Mopelola Abudu, Managing Partner of AfriGlobal VC. When they said funding and investment, I thought the applause would swell because I don't know about you, but we could all do with some money, some funding for our creative businesses. So one more time, let's make welcome our lead discussants for the second plenary sessions. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Multimedia, do we have...
Local Venture Capital, a VC firm. Mopelola Abudu is the managing partner of AfriGlobal Venture Capital, a VC firm positioned to back pre-seed, seed-staged African-focused fintech and digital infrastructure technology startups that combine wealth creation and local visioning solutions. She is driven to enhance the digital economy benefits of the geo-focused African countries, where she operates through appropriate funding and investment and the appropriate business support for a winning business model that will yield impact and returns. Her passion and focus are for indigenous growing businesses across Africa to position for local opportunities, leveraging her business working experience and network gained from the US, UK, and Nigeria. Her business skills and practical experience have been nurtured from her various management and executive positions in organizations such as NatWest Cards UK, HSBC Rail UK, the Financial Services Authority UK, Heirs Alliance Nigeria, and Nexon Business Services. Beyond her professional experience, Mope is also a serial entrepreneur with an established business in the agriculture, entertainment, and property development spaces. She also co-founded an indigenous family entertainment center called Maxtivity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the AOT stage.
I think this is a good place to put our hands together for our lead discussant of our second plenary session, who will set the tone in 5 to 7 minutes. Then we'll invite the other panelists as well as the moderator before we move to our breakout sessions.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It really is an honor to be here. I must, first of all, say a big thank you to the executive management, all the leads at Lagos State, and to the organizers of this event. It's a very, very, very impactful event, and I'm sure we're all going to be gaining from today. So my session today as a lead discussant really is to talk about the real essence of this. And it's the foil, which is also about funding. And it's very interesting how, money is always discussed in every single industry. But today, it's very critical that we just don't talk, we actually implement. So it's really to understand what the opportunities are. Everyone who has been on this stage has really talked about the creative economy being a major, major contributor to the GDP. But it's also very important that you and I also play our own, support to make sure that we're able to fund it. So today, to start off our discussions, we're really, really going to be discussing about how the digitization of an economy can actually improve the wealth of all its stakeholders, both the curators, the designers, everyone within the value chain, and most importantly, the economy of the country. And what we want to see is that everyone understands how to provide an impact and great returns to those who are actually investing in that space, either through time or money, but also ensuring that the impact is felt both locally and internationally as well. So to move forward, it's for us to really understand that this is an economy that is a huge employer of labor. Some of the stats that have been shown before were staggering of what could be in the next 5 years and 10 years. And it's actually very interesting to know that even as you sit here, you could also be a partaker, either to be an employer or to learn through the ropes as an employee and then build up your own, unicorn, so to speak. And why shouldn't we have unicorns within the creative space? It shouldn't only be for the fintechs. And I think this is a very, this is a reality that can become, felt in the very near future. So the very key sectors when we talk about the creative economy are normally the media, entertainment, beauty and lifestyle, film, music, tourism, and then it dovetails into hospitality, where we have the food and all the other areas. And these are key contributors, to this creative economy. And we can see that collectively, this is a huge area that cannot be ignored. But what is critical is to invest properly, both through the government as well as the private sector. And in empowering these areas, it creates a domino and a multiplier effect on all other industries as well. Because strategic funding is the injection of funds to create whole value chains. I normally say the fintech has been the John the Baptist. They have opened up our eyes. But what we're seeing is that there are so many other economies that are right on the heels of the fintech that could even outpass, what we have seen. So it's very interesting to see how funding in this area can catalyze this creative economy. And I'll just take a moment to, cast our minds back to this popular quote, and says the only way to limit creativity is to limit yourself. And what we're seeing here is that with innovation, supported with the digitalization, our creativity can, create leaps and bounds in terms of where we need to go. So for Lagos State, we've talked about quite a lot of the different opportunities, but I would also like us to open up our minds to some other areas. We know Lagos State is the commercial hub, but it also has the potential to be the creative hub, not just for Nigeria, for even Africa. And from here, we can showcase so much of our cultural diversity and create economies, even sub-economies within this. And just at halftime, I heard the Nigerian artist playing during the midterm. And it was just so pleasing to understand how our culture was being showcased in a very, very, very big forum. But what is more important is that we shouldn't just get carried away with the potentials. We should actually take note of what this can mean in terms of monetizing it. So it's important that we look at some of the other key areas that funding needs to look at, where art can fuel tourism to a totally different level, where food and hospitality can create a chain of, opportunities for those who want to invest. Is it through the hotels? Is it through the artwork? Is it through the food? Is it through the music? So there are so many opportunities. However, digitalization will create more insights and more people from different areas to actually invest both their time and their funds in here. And it's not only for the individuals, it's also for institutions to handshake with these creative, curators to ensure that we can propel them beyond what they're doing presently and use the digital networks to create a sustainable economy. But what is very important from an investor's point of view is that the risk needs to be assessed, and if they are assessed properly, the challenges can be overcome, and it gives us a much more interesting platform to actually invest in. And beyond that, it's to marry some of the traditional ways of funding with some of the more innovative ways of funding. So yes, there have been the traditional banks, there have been the traditional way of funding, which is, typical, such as the private equities, who would wait until it is a fully established business, or the venture capital spaces, which would take earlier risk and grow the businesses, to the regular bootstrapping. But what is very important is that we also need to apply innovation even in the way we fund. And this is where government and private institutions can actually come together. There are new ways that we will be talking about on this platform. Crowdfunding is a huge opportunity. And I'm very happy to hear some of the innovations coming in terms of blockchain, which will provide that transparency along the whole chain of the investment space to be sure that some of the areas that might have been deemed risky become very transparent. And when we're able to provide some of these innovative funding, we lessen the burden and the risk that is placed on just one particular area. And I would like to explain that one of the key areas that we're actually finding as a new way of funding is even involving the public in terms of their crowdfunding opportunities. We have found that even you sitting on the space may, through your own passion, be a contributor to the fund model. If you could cast your mind back to the days in United Kingdom when the lottery was a very hyped up model. For every £1 that you spend on the lottery, a portion of that actually went into the sports industry. And over the years, coupled with a matching concept from the government, most of those who then went on to represent, that industry in sports had been funded from the lottery. Yet, your $1, you might have assumed, your £1 was just to, give you a chance to earn a big, jackpot. But what has happened is that creative industries were being funded, avenues to train, avenues to create a whole pipeline of stars. And over 10 years, we found superstars coming out from these infrastructures that were funded both from the government as well as from the community. So creative models to actually look at how to fund our Lagos State's cultural diversity are, between you and I, very, very feasible. Then we can actually then bring some of the traditional measures to then support it in bigger models. And it was very encouraging to hear our Lagos State Governor also putting, a stamp of authority of their intentions to support and fund these creative industries. So today, it's all about looking about how we can fund the whole value chain in terms of the infrastructure, making sure that physical as well as digital infrastructure aid this development. Funders, either through angel investors, venture capital funds, private equity, and institutional support, as well as grants that recognize the potentials of these businesses, will all be applied to this economy at the different stages of development. But what is more important is that business models need to be applied. It's not enough just to have the passion or the talent. It's very, very critical that we see a sustainable business that will get us through to the end and give us the kind of returns. Because every single investor is always looking for returns. And I would just showcase some of the potentials that can come through, even locally. Ghana has had an opportunity for the year of return, and we have found the diaspora funding most of that in terms of them trying to find their origins. This has created a huge contribution to the GDP. Rwanda has done a lot in terms of their ready for business, even in sports, T-shirts and the rest of that are shown by their sports and music people. So this is our opportunity as Lagos State to showcase that Lagos is ready for business and ready for investment by making sure that the digitalization attracts everyone who wants to invest. So I'll probably just end up by saying, today, as investors, we need to see the opportunity, be partakers at this very early stage, so that the returns that we normally expect as investors can become a reality by showcasing innovation even in the way we invest, beyond the traditional models. And I would like to end this here as we move into the full set panel version of funding in the creative industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Thank you very much to our lead discussant for setting the tone. One more time, please, Ma, don't be in a hurry to leave. Ms. Mope Lola Abudu would like you to take your seat. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together as she takes her seat. I think the applause can get better, and it should get better. To join the second plenary session, I have the distinct pleasure to invite the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, Engineer Mrs. Ibilola Kasumo. A warm round of applause for her. We also have Damilola Teidi Ayola, Head Platform and Networks Venture Platform Fund. Please put your hands together. Also joining this panel is the National Coordinator, Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises Program, in the person of Ife Adebayo. Let's put our hands together. Next, and the final participant in terms of speakers for the second plenary session is the founder of Bella Niger. Let's put our hands together as we welcome Uche Pedro. I think the applause can swell, it can get louder. And to moderate this very important conversation on the creative economy, funding and investment opportunities, join me in welcoming the CEO of Godred Consumer Products Limited, West Africa. Let's put our hands together for Kayode Oladapo, our moderator for the second plenary session. I think the applause should keep going till our moderator gets on stage. Let's have that energy. Aot Lagos 5.0. A warm round of applause. Woo! See, I'm even helping you with the energy.
Just to warn everybody, came here with 100 questions. 200 questions, we've got 20 minutes, so Victor, help us do the maths. Anyway, you know, one of the things and the perks I enjoy in my job is I get to sit down and mediate in a room of very smart, very passionate people who all care about the organization, but from different perspectives. It's fun. You know, I usually like to allow these debates go on for 5 minutes, and then I decide which of them is going to give me better bottom line, and my support goes in that direction. And a couple of weeks ago, no, actually more than a couple, just about a month ago, there was this heated debate between my head of finance, head of marketing, and instead, you know, that polarization was coming, and then everybody started taking sides. So I saw the R&D guy take sides with the marketing guy. I saw the sales guy take sides with the finance guy. And eventually the sales guy goes, you know, we put too much money behind marketing. And we don't even know what part of marketing spend is wasted. Then the finance guy goes, I agree. I mean, I really like to see what the ROI is. And usually it wasn't the first time. There are different variations of that. And this time the marketing guy gave a response that I actually respected. And he said, you want me to articulate the ROI. Finance guy says, yes. Says, okay, as your brand scores gone up, have you gained market share? Yes. As the business grown, is there more efficiency in the ROI? Said yes. Says that's the answer for you. For the first time, very antithetical to me, I had to approve incremental spend even in a chaotic economy. Next time I know not to be in that conversation, I'll just walk out because now I see. But when he started explaining the things that brought the ROI, I realized something. Actually, our organization is part of the creative economy because we enable beauty every single day. But that's not all. When he was breaking down his spend, I started seeing what was happening with the different models that we put on our packaging, the different people that help with creating the advertisement, the different platforms, and the contact point planning and what they do that amplifies our business. Then I realized, hold on, how much spend goes into this industry? Because every year is about 5 to 10% of my top line. And I don't spend as much as the telcos. Then there is entertainment industry, as I used to call it. And because I come from this old school background where if it's not medicine, engineering, or law, it's not really serious. But I realized actually that this economy is huge. So then, my first question goes to you, Uche. How do we not know enough about this industry? How is all of this brilliant work that is being done not being amplified? Why are we not connecting the dots as to what this ecosystem is? How do we create the marketplace that allows the system get the right time in the sun and the right funding? So I'm going to start with you.
Okay, great. So here's the thing. We're at the end of the year, and I know this time a few days ago, everybody was sort of sharing their Spotify Wrapped for the year, saying, okay, these were the top artists that I streamed and things like that. So that form of data visualization is so important. So you can tell all the top songs that your friends listen to, and I think that we can use that technology at a larger scale. So we've seen the global companies do it really well with their data. We've seen Netflix say, okay, these are the numbers for Nigeria, these are the numbers for South Africa. So at this point, for our Nigerian companies and various aspects of our industries, really pulling that data together and storytelling in a really beautiful way will be really powerful. You mentioned something about your space, for example. As much as we see the gorgeous adverts, but some level of impact sharing around the data will be beautiful. This is the number of models we hired this year. This was the number of packs of extensions we used for our campaigns. These are the number of photographers that we engaged. Another thing I'll say is a challenge is that we're sometimes scared of numbers. When I say numbers, I mean money. People are, okay, if you're a public company, you're sharing, okay, this is how much we've made. But within the creative industry, there's a bit of reluctance around it. So if I go to, I actually used to work in the manufacturing sector a long time ago. You can tell this is how many tons of, shea butter we use for making this chocolate. This is how much we spent on this factory. But if you ask a musician, okay, how much money actually went into it? There's a bit of reluctance. So I'll say that one, the willingness to share data. Two, using technology for that data visualization and storytelling. And three, all the sectors within the ecosystem really working together to ensure that this space is able to go to the next level.
Brilliant. Thanks, Uche. And okay, just leveraging from that, I was just listening to you talk about all of the work you're doing in funding and how this could be amplified. Do you reckon if the data was clear and people could see the trajectory of growth of this industry, there just might be incremental interest to invest, right? Do you reckon that would happen? And if that's the case, how are organizations like yours then positioned to help us position, and open up the door to funding that is both conventional and unconventional to move this economy forward?
The say numbers don't lie, really. That's half of it, but it's also simulating what those numbers could mean. Yes, sometimes investors are very cagey. They need to see the fact, so to speak, before they make a step forward. But risk-taking is also about very quickly simulating what could be. And numbers kind of help you visualize that. And, just what, she was saying, it's very important that you see where you are now and what could be and make that projection. And as investors, you need to anticipate the risk and, immediately getting there. The creative economy right now can catastrophically change, the nation if it is channeled properly. But if you tarry too long and don't get into the space, someone else who is much more, or who is willing to take that risk could take on that opportunity. So yes, the visualization is important, but it's more importantly the gut feel and understanding that this could transform. And then as investors, you also see, beyond just the narrow vision. You're seeing other domino effects that can also impact it and even complement it as well. So you can bring in, sometimes it's almost like an arranger. You bring in other players who would then multiply what initially is being presented to you and even take it to, to a bigger stage. So numbers definitely help fuel that image.
Right. I agree with you. Now I'm trying to see where I sit between someone looking for the investment and someone holding back from taking the risk. Because it's a fine balance, right? If we invest behind a well-articulated promise, but we have to de-risk the investment. So what are the things you reckon we need to do to mitigate the risk? Because, we're talking earlier about the tech ecosystem, the fintech system getting significant amounts of investments in the last couple of years. But we also know that we've seen quite a lot of those investments just fizzle out and not really, deliver on the promise. So I'm going to now bring this conversation to, the table to say, how do we protect investors, from white elephant projects? Yeah? How do we design out the risk? And how do we make sure that government has created the right framework to make sure the investment yields the right returns? And I'm going to direct this first to Engineer Ibilola and also Nasir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. So basically, government is here to create an enabling environment for businesses and industries to thrive. We're not in the business of doing business, or we're not supposed to be in the business of doing business. So it's by, let's say, creating the right policies that would guide all investments and industries, entrepreneurs that want to create some kind of business in the state or in the economy, to drive the economy. That's where we stand. We have to create the right policies, and that's by engaging the stakeholders, because you are the stakeholders. And if we want to create our policies, we must make sure that our policies are policies that will work for you, not just for us. So when we engage the industry, we will be able to know what kind of policies would work, both for the government, the public sector, and private sector, and industries with entrepreneurs, manufacturers, and just the different variety of industrialists that we have in the state. So that's where we are as a government. It's really to create an enabling environment for economies and industries to thrive.
And just on that also, earlier we were talking about the role of government in piracy protection and things like that, right? Are you also going to accelerate the work to be done on creating the framework and regulatory policies that allows protection of investments? Will investors feel like their money is backed by something that makes them not get scared of throwing it down the drain? Will that be one of the areas that government would look into?
So are you talking about investing in government or investing
No, investing actually in the ecosystem.
In the ecosystem?
Yes. Will the right policies be created to protect investors and make sure that some of these investments become less and less risk exposed.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. That, like I said, it's by fostering more stakeholder engagements. So we have to know. So when you come approach government now, you're talking about you want to create maybe you have some innovative idea, or you have some product. Now, to scale, you need to have something that you're offering the general populace. What are you offering the citizens? What are they going to get from it? Then we now have to look through your financial model, everything, in order for us to create the right framework that will drive your business. That's really it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Angela. Because I was just thinking, if that happens, and I'm less afraid to lose money, then I'm more inclined to invest. But on the one hand is eliminating the fear. The other hand is, if I have a limited amount of money to invest, I have to look at where I get the maximum. Right? So that means this is where I ask you, just given what you do, how does the technology that you're exposed to help us amplify the investments and the creative expression, give us higher return on investment?
How does the technology
Amplify.
I think, first of all, I wanted to take a step back on the VC side, because I think it's also important to understand how certain types of investment work. And when you're talking about de-risking, even when you do all of these policies, will people still invest? And it's a combination of different things that people have said. One, as a VC, you do have people you pitch to for investments, right? Whereas founders or the entrepreneurs are pitching to you, you've also pitched to other investors. And all of your objectives must align, right? Now, like you said, with VCs, the whole idea of VC is that we get outsized returns, that we invest in companies that can give multiple returns. Some companies will do very well, and we keep saying that, but they may never be VC backable. Some creative companies will do well, and by creative, I mean the combination of creative economy and technology will do well, but they may never be VC backable. And others will be VC backable. And so it's important to understand, one, why the numbers are important. Because the numbers will show that, hey, besides fintech, besides health tech, besides this, wow, look at how much these people are making. Look at how much is going into this economy. You can get outsized returns from here. But that's not the only thing. It's that the people that understand the sector are also investing. It's what happened with some of the other sectors. People didn't wake up one day and fintech became successful. There were people that understood the space, that even went ahead to found companies in the space, and others went ahead to invest in the space. When you do that, you're also showing that you're willing to carry the risk. And then, even as VCs, sometimes we can't invest in a company if we don't understand the sector. It's actually, in a number of cases, foolishness. We would say, okay, we would wait, or we would speak to another VC within that sector to say, hey, do you think this works? Let's go in together. That's another way of de-risking. There is risk in VC. It's gonna, when companies are going to fail, it's part of what you sign up for. But these are the ways that you can, de-risk, whether it's from the numbers, whether it's from people actually entering into the space, or programs from the ones that we go and pitch to. You see, when you enter into every step of that ladder, you de-risk the whole thing. So you don't also talk to VCs, you talk to the ones that will give VCs money. And then I'm hoping that Ife will also touch on it, because there's also a program where it's for the creative economy, and I feel like that's important, because it's like, oh, VCs, we're ready to put in money here, so you can pay attention to this sector. It's like, okay, no problem. If you are happy with this sector, I can also find a way to make it work. I can pay attention to the numbers now. I can pay attention to the people there and see if outsized returns can come from there. And from your conversation about, technology accelerating, Uche talked about storytelling and numbers. I personally believe the creative sector is big. I think everybody knows it. I think it's the numbers that is missing. I don't think that I'm super proud of everything that's going on in the creative sector. Like, I'm super, super proud. But I think it's just being able to visualize those numbers, being able to say that this is actually good for investment because this is all the money that flows into it. And then saying that for those of you that are investing in technology, this is how creative sector meets technology for it to scale. Because if that scalability is not there, then there's no appetite. For those of us that invest on companies that leverage technology, there's no appetite to invest.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that sometimes you hear these things that just gives you this little tingle at the back of your neck. And, because of my work looking for consumers and how to scale business, I tend to move around a lot. As a Nigerian, every time you get to the border patrol and they ask, where are you from? And you say, I'm Nigerian. And then they go, hi, is Burna Boy. Everybody just assumes Lagos is a very small place and we all live within one street. And, I know Burna. I've never met him. But these questions come, and it gives you a sense of pride. And, what's happening to me is more and more, the creative economy is beyond the money and the scale-up of GDP. It's also about national pride. And when you just think about how Nigerians make the impossible possible, irrespective of our unique challenges. And, earlier Bosun was talking about how we are very behind. Yeah? You think about all of that, pride comes in. And that pride now makes me say, how do we make this happen faster? Now, risk is one thing. We can de-risk it. We can design out the risk. But understanding the funding model and how to get the right funding, because there's good funding and bad funding, right? And I've seen a lot of people get bad funding that puts them under pressure and then the company collapses. Mismatch, exactly. So, where are you waiting? How do we steer startups, creatives, in the direction of finding the right funding that helps them not just prepare for the scale-up, but nurtures them through the scale-up to the point where the ROI starts coming in? How do we nurture them, guide them, and propel them towards that direction?
Thank you. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. One of the things that I admire about Nigeria's tech and creative ecosystem is the organic way in which both have been grown and built, right? Without much of a framework that guides that growth and that development. So the question then is, when you speak about startup investment and you say, for example, in 2023, Nigerian startups raised X billion. So the question is X billion a good number or a bad number? If the requirement for the ecosystem was X plus 10, then are we saying X is good enough? Or if it was X plus 2, then X is good enough because it's just 2 that we needed to add, right? So I think that's one of the core areas that government even needs to first look at, working with the private sector to see what exactly is needed. Now, if you do that well, it also helps to know if you're going into fintech, going into health tech, going into logistics tech, whatever it is you're going into, you're able to understand what are those core areas, firstly, of government's priority, secondly, of the private sector's priority, thirdly, determine the kind of fund. Are we looking at equity? Are we looking at debt? Are we looking at grants? Are we looking at a blend of both? And then you start to drive all your efforts and work towards that, both public and private sector. Now, if you look at it that way, it then also helps the ESOs. A lot of Nigeria's enterprise support organizations are struggling today, and they are the ones who are supposed to help these startups and groom them and guide them. And it's the same with even those within the universities. You have a lot of ESOs within universities. A lot of the universities now have enterprise centers. Some of these enterprise centers were built with billions by the CBN, by TED Fund, but nothing is happening in there. They're just built, they're just wasting away. So what model are we going to use to ensure that we have sustainable ESO systems that help the ESOs to keep the light on, that help them to support the startups more, and that also help to sort of catalyze and change the thinking of the startups themselves to know that what am I building for? Am I building for impact, for social impact? Am I building for profit? Now, if I'm building for profit, I'll go to ventures platform, right? But if I'm building for impact, I'll go to the United Nations, or I'll go and meet the permanent secretary to say, what are you doing in Lagos Innovates to support this particular sector in Lagos? So, that kind of guidance, that kind of structure, I think is what is needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Ifan. Tony, I really hope we don't actually feel we will exceed time, because the more we talk, the more interesting this gets. So I'm just now matching what you said, Uche, and what you've said. So today we do not know the size of price of this industry. Basically, we've not mapped it. Do we? Do we know the size of price? Do we know how big this industry is? We don't know that today, right? Subosu, I think we need help mapping out the creative economy in Lagos. Yeah, because we've not put it. If we do know that, it changes the game. So I'm just going to come back to you. I've got, how do we now, with the position your organization is in, with the kind of work IFED does in IDIC, with the ministry, with Dami's work, how do we all sit together to, one, map out the industry, understand the size of price? How do we work with the government to set ourselves a target on this is how much we want to chew year on year to position ourselves for, because just think about how sad the numbers looked from what the creative economy is turning out in Europe to what it is in Africa. By the way, that was not Nigeria. That was Africa. And then you think about 20 million people in Lagos with crazily smart minds, exceptionally hardworking people who thrive in intense competitive environments. How do we map ourselves to be ready to place ourselves in that global map? What do you think the conversation should be so that once we have that map down, we can go back to Uche to say, okay, amplify and position, tell our stories right?
Like in any business, you really need what we call the market research. That research is the forerunner. It's the feasibility. It's the sizing of the market. It's the feeling of the DNA, the capacity to spend, the spending capacity presently, and you give what-if scenarios. That needs to be documented. So in Lagos State, where we're over 20 million, you look at the demography, you look at their interest, and you kind of size out with a market research the players, the immediate players, and the subsequent players, and come up with figures that can estimate how much is being spent presently to estimate the market size. Now, when you look at the infrastructural support that is actually present and coming, you can then project ahead what this market will be in a couple of years. Because for you to make that investment decision, you also want to know what infrastructural support systems would aid it for sustainability, because you're already at risk if you're only thinking of the now and not thinking ahead. So it's very important that the research is done, and it was very interesting to hear what the commission was saying in terms of the R&D aspect, even with our institutions. The portal, which is currently ongoing, needs to be highly, highly encouraged for people to put in willingly their data. And I dare say even almost enforced, because if you don't have that primary information, you may be working on, numbers that are not feasible. So that will be the foundation to estimate the business size or the market size, and then projections in terms of all other infrastructural, governmental support, private investors can then be juxtaposed with that to estimate what could be. So it's very important that we do those granular bits of information.
Just to add to that would also be the value in numbers of the export as well, because we talk about how Nigeria entertainment, the movies, music is everywhere globally. Like, what is that? What is that in numbers? What is that in the percentage of the creative space globally or even on the continent? So we not only look at what's happening within Lagos, but what is being exported out of Lagos or out of Lagos into other states, out of Nigeria to Africa, and then globally. And then also very important that you involve all stakeholders from the beginning, because if you miss out on a certain kind of investor or a certain kind of stakeholder, bringing them at the end, that's why sometimes you have like reports that some people don't even know exist, right? Somebody would have done a research and you don't even know it exists. So you always have to bring stakeholders from the beginning, both for inputting the data, but also for asking what should we even be collecting? What do you need to see at the end of it? It's also very important.
Thanks for that, Demi. And I was just thinking it's a good thing that we're having this session, but action points should come out of this. So I was just wondering if the convener of AOT is here. He's not, Tubosun is here. Yeah, so Tubosun, someone has to coordinate this. I think it's important that we come out of this with an action plan on how to size the creative economy and, share that data out. Because just thinking about it, I'm looking across the room and I see, thousands of young people both seated here physically and checking online. And Dami, this goes to you. Your experience, what are the challenges they face in getting access to funding and getting access to the right information to know what to do at the right time? Your experience, what have you seen, and what's your 2-3 bullet points on how to help them surmount that hurdle?
In terms of challenges, one is sometimes people don't even know where to go. The network. I think someone was saying the importance of hubs and accelerators, and it helps with even connecting you and knowing who you should be speaking to. So sometimes it's just, who do I speak to? Sometimes it's like, what does the other person want to see? That's why I sort of broke down if you're coming to a VC, you need to understand what our own reporting lines are. Sometimes you don't know what that other person wants to see. So you put something together and first impression matters, it doesn't go through. And sometimes it's that even the people that you're speaking to don't know anything about the sector or don't know much about the sector. So there's a mismatch. And to be able to counter that is one, it's not every funding organization or investor that you need to be speaking to. Because even hearing so many no's can be demoralizing. It's like you need to understand what is this investor's objective? What is their thesis? Like you were saying, if someone is impact focused and that's what you're going for, you go there. If someone is very profit driven and you're aligned with that, but also if they say it's only health and logistics, you will never make them do another sector. It's not going to happen because they've already promised. Remember that ladder? They've promised someone else, and those are the sectors that they're focused on. So I think it's important to know your audience, who you're going to be speaking to. It's important to broaden your network as well, because with networks come people you can meet. With networks come knowledge of what you need to do to be able to get the right impression or get the right support from whoever, or get the right funding from whoever you're pitching to. And other things as well is putting your house in order, your team, the business model, please make it make sense, and the capital, the efficiency of the capital, so how you're building your business. I know one thing about the creative space is that a lot of money goes into awareness. But there's no money, there's a global, let me not talk too much about it, but the whole environment globally, not just in Nigeria, because at the moment it's kind of slow when it comes to funding. So if you get any amount of money, you need to be careful with how you spend it. You need to extract value. You need to unleash that creativity to spend, to put in $1 and get like multiple, users or multiple revenue from that particular $1. So I think these are things that are important.
I see you here, but I checked after you said, so we still have 3 minutes. So if I've got my semi-last card question for you. Question is, at the end of the day, it's, even for the creative entrepreneurs and most of the players that are looking to break through the ranks in that industry, it's important to know your audience, like Dami was saying. So just help us understand a couple of measures that you look out for when you are evaluating impact. those type of measures that makes the pitch a little bit more productive, but also helps the business move in the right direction so they know what they are chasing after?
I think firstly, who are the founders and what is the skill and experience and knowledge that the founder has about what they're doing? That's very important. What are the support systems that the founders put in place? What are the key strategic fiduciary controls, checks and balances that are in place? I think these are very critical. And then, what's the level of risk? You talked about the risking earlier. I think one of the things that government needs to do is to match private sector funding in order to de-risk private sector funding. That's one of the things we are doing on the IDICE program. And take first loss, encourage the private sector to go into places they wouldn't typically go into and go and do the hard work that government really does not have the capacity and the ability to do.
Thank you. Coach, I've got my last card. Do the checkup. Uche, every now and again when I'm at work and things are getting very crazy, you take this coffee break, and I found a therapy. It's Instagram now, which is a bit shocking because I never thought I'll understand the platform. But now it makes sense. And, there's a blogger, Tunde North. There's you, and I constantly go into those pages. And something struck me a couple of weeks ago where he had put up a skit. And I think the person who originally made that skit goes into the comment section to say, "Thank you, Kingmaker." In my head, I was thinking, like, that's a bit... But then it makes sense because they've gotten free amplification, to millions of people. But not everybody is able to get that access, right? And I think, on the last note, I would just like to ask you for your advice to a lot of young entrepreneurs. How do they navigate the digital landscape to make their works get noticed by people like you, and then, make it qualitative enough for you to want to amplify? What are those things you'd encourage them to do?
Okay, great question. So I would look at this multi-layered. One is that we need to continue nurturing that creative energy. We've talked about a whole lot today, but if that creative energy is not there and is not thriving, there's nothing to sell. So for example, with Burner, Rema, everybody, if they did not derive that energy from back home, there's no music for us to listen to. So for these creators, what I would say is let's continue finding ways to nurture and train them in a way that is future-proof. So remember, we're entering into an era of AI. Remember, if you flash back at a couple of decades ago, nobody could even realize that the internet would be such a big part of our daily lives. And that is the same thing we're going to see with AI, for example. It is really going to change the way we are living. So for the creators of today, it's saying, how are you going to nurture your energy and how are you going to make it future-proof? How are you going to ensure that you're getting a piece of the next frontier pie? And to answer your question, that's one of the ways you're going to get noticed. If you flash back on Instagram 10, maybe 8 years ago when some of these short comedy skits started, the people who were trending then are not the people who are trending now. Each year, new people. So this year, Lai's year, tomorrow, we'll probably have somebody else, while the existing people will expand their frontiers into other modes as well. So I would say that's key. So to answer your question, the final thing I would say is, for the big picture, right now, if you have any Gen Zs around you, they spend all their time on TikTok. There's always a platform that is going to emerge. So TikTok's origins are in Asia, the US. Instagram is in the US, and we have a couple of other platforms, but there is a potential for an African platform. Spotify is from Scandinavia. There is a potential for another platform from our continent. So it's not going to be easy, but as we enter this new frontier, going back, let's continue nurturing that creative energy so we have content for those platforms. And finally, we want you guys to invest in the next big platform that blows up worldwide, made in Africa. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, thank you. Okay. So my final question is to Engineer Bilola. So first, let me just say thank you for all the work you do. I think, when I look at AOT over the last 5 editions or the previous 4 and today, I'm just amazed at how things have gone from government being that mysterious black face nobody knows to a human, approachable, we can converse, sit on one platform, not holding daggers, but collaborating together reality. So thanks for that. And I know you work a lot on the scenes, in front, behind, to make this happen. But I think the question for me is, how do we accelerate going forward? Just if you can just share within the next 1 minute. You have a very intimidating stance. You should, if you can just share within the next 1 minute, how over the next 12 months, before we come back for AOT next year, you would accelerate those collaborations between government, private sector creatives, and the funding ecosystem to move us forward so we can celebrate this a year from now.
Okay, thank you. So basically, in the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, we have different platforms in which we have investors, we have startups. They can all take advantage of those platforms in order for them to be connected to maybe the help they need or the industries they need. So we've got Aot Lagos. That's one of the platforms where all startups can register. You can all register on that platform, and it's a way of validating, yourselves. Because as a startup, you're trying to connect to investors, you're trying to connect to people that would invest in your company, or even just mentors that have done it before, or collaborators. From that platform, you have access to so many people, and people also have access to you. So you have the opportunity to put out information that you want them to know about your company, what you do, what you're looking for, your ask, and that way you can be reached. And once you're on that platform, it kind of validates and gives you some kind of authenticity so that people know that you're real. So it's not just for people, investors in Nigeria. Even from outside Nigeria, they have that opportunity. So we have that platform. Then we also have LASRIC, which is the Lagos Science Research and Innovation Council. So in that council, like the governor said earlier on, we give out different amounts of money to startups with good ideas in research, in tech, in innovation, in agri-tech, whatever sector, as long as it's viable. Once it's an MVP, or it can just even be ideation phase, we will fund it once we realize that it's something that we can, fund, and it is going to be to the benefit of the state. So you have LASRIC, anybody can apply. So you have the Ecovention program as well, which is when we go around the different hubs and we have call-outs for people to come in and pitch, so that we see if whatever product you have, if it's viable, then you have the opportunity to now come and pitch to LASRIC so that we can invest in you. And then some of the winners in the past editions that we've had, we've taken them to Dubai, to GITEX in Dubai and Morocco. We've gone to GITEX twice now, and then Morocco once, and they had the opportunity to meet up with different investors. We had a couple of people from a company in Abu Dhabi. They walked into our stand, and they were just, give us your best 5 startups. And from that, we already have a company one of our companies, indigenous companies here, that is in partnership or talking about partnership with this Abu Dhabi company. So those are the kind of opportunities that we're talking about, So they do exist, and that's what Lagos State is doing. So we're not faceless. We're here, we're friendly. We have a very friendly government. We're listening. We want to collaborate with them. We want to grow. We want to scale. We want to become the startup capital of Africa. We already are, kind of, unofficially, but we want to make it official.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for a very rich discussion. I think I had 200 questions. You've answered them all. And I look forward to the explosion, to the level of potential that this industry has. And I'm sure when we come here next year, we'll be able to talk about some incremental numbers that this conversation.
Thank you. Please, let's put our hands together. Thank you very much to our panelists. We'd like to welcome on stage for photo ops, the convener as well as HC, please. So they'll be taking pictures. While they're doing that, I'd also like to announce that we want to engage in the breakout sessions. When we go to different breakout sessions, we have 4 of them. Meals will be served there, okay? Food, we do understand that some of us are very, very hungry. So we need to eat, we need to catch our breath. It's been a long haul of discussions. So each of the sessions I'm going to mention, when you go there, there's going to be a master class, and then the breakout session will commence. Food will be shared in each of these breakout sessions. That's where you find your meal, or better still, lunch. All right? So please pay attention as I mention each of the breakout sessions, the theme, and the panelists who will be there. So you can pick which of them you would love to be part of, all right? So the very first breakout session I'm going to mention is the one just at the other hall, the expo hall, where you have the exhibition that's ongoing, okay? That's the exhibition hall. And the theme for that one is the digital wave, powering creative innovation in Africa. Powering creative innovation in Africa. So if you are interested in knowing what creative innovation is about, and you want to be part of that breakout session, it's just at the other hall. And the panelists, or better still, those who will be speaking, include founder Swift XR, Hamed Aroshebe will be there. Obi Ebuka, founder and CEO, Autogon AI. Also not forgetting Toby Olaiwola, co-founder, Corpay. Benjamin Oladogu, co-founder, Shekel Mobility, will also be there. You have head of engineering, RevoCube Technologies, Dr. Paul Anyam, he will also be there. You also have founder, Floats XR, Iyobosa Rehoboth will be there as well. Founder and board chairman of Imperial EdTech, Lanre Ogundikbe will be there as well. And co-founder, executive director, Global Croft Limited, that's Jonathan Okonlawo will also be there. He's the moderator, where it's just the next hall, which is the expo hall. So you might want to make your way there. Don't forget, there will be masterclass first, and then you now have the breakout session with the theme, the digital wave, powering creative innovation in Africa. Lunch will be served there. That's the first one. Let's tell you about the second one. It's going to be not far off from you, just here, okay, the right, just here, this stage here. That's the next breakout session. How it's going to work, don't worry, you have your headsets, so it's a silent breakout session. You just put on your headsets and you can hear whichever breakout session you want to belong to. So it's on the right here, that's where it's going to happen. And the theme for that one simply is
unlocking the creative currency, the power of digital content. Unlocking the creative currency, the power of digital content. This session will be moderated by Yewande Adewusi, who is the strategy and business development leader and board advisor. Also on this panel, we have Femi Taiwo, Chief Executive Officer at TerraWork. Remember, this is both a breakout session and a masterclass, two wrapped in one. We have Taye Salami, CEO from Nigeria for Build Ventures Africa. We have the co-founder and CMO, Dizboz, Ejiro Akpokoje. We also have the co-founder, Nest Innovation Hub, Oluwajoba Oloba. Not forgetting the Director General, Lagos State Office of Transformation, Creativity and Innovation, Toyin Andrews Ademuiwa. We also have Kemi Balogun, Executive Director of Innovations and Shared Services, VFD Microfinance Bank. And finally, we have Olusanjo Shodimo, Chief Digital and Innovation Officer, co-founder, Flexure by Ayiko.
All right, you did hear the moderator, Yewande Adewusi, will be there. Now, the theme for this one again is unlocking the creative currency, the power of digital content. For me personally, I'm interested in this one because I want to know how I can earn money on Instagram, on Facebook, and now X, formerly known as Twitter. You need to subscribe and then you start.
What about TikTok? Are you on TikTok?
Yeah, well, I try, but I can't do those TikTok
I hear
challenges.
when you have 1,000 followers, you can go on live and then someone can gift you a lion, a flower, and you can exchange it for money.
If you have questions on that, that's the place to go. To the right, that's one of the the breakout sessions. Let's give you the next one, the third one. It's not far off, it's just behind, at the back right there. The theme for that is creative economy, navigating IP, policies and regulations. Okay, navigating IP, policies and regulations. And let's give you a quick rundown of the speakers there. You have Beverly A. Abakoba, Onyejianya, a partner, head of sports, entertainment and technology, SET Group, OAL. Shehu Timi Koleolu is a managing partner of Pavestones Legal. I want to check that out as well. You also have Secretary General, Africa Esports Development Federation, Shayo Olabi. Charles Emembulu, Director of Partnerships Innovation Support Network, ISN Nigeria, will be there as well. Chief Fixer, Tech Hive Advisory, Deji Sarumi will be there as well. Omori Uyilo, okay, Omori Uyilo will also be there. Lead partner, Ediogware and company LP. I hope I got that pronunciation right. And finally, it's the moderator, DK Merimoth, Chief Executive Officer, ZE Studio. That's the creative economy, navigating IP policies and regulations. Don't forget, lunch will be served in every of the breakout sessions you want to go to. Let me quickly run through it again. So people are asking, just briefly, if you want to go for digital wave, powering creative innovation in Africa, powering creative innovation, it's the other hall, okay? That's the expo hall. If you want unlocking the creative currency, the power of digital content, how to make money online, right? If you want to know how you can actually navigate between policies that protect, guide, or regulations regarding the creative economy, it's just at the back, okay?
And for the main stage, we have Creative 2030, envisioning the next decade for Lagos creative economy, for Lagos's creative economy. So if you want to know how Lagos will be in 2030, or you want to contribute to that vision, then I encourage you to move to the front, because this breakout session will be happening right here on stage. And we have the Honorable Commissioner, Tourism, Arts and Culture, Lagos State, Moshope Folu George. We also have Ambassador Dr. Queen Blessing Ebigbesin, National President, Association of Movie Producers, AMP Nigeria. Also, Bola Ogidon, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Pirano Energy. We also have the co-founder and managing director at Film One Entertainment in the person of Adetoke Benson Awoyinka. Also on this panel or breakout session group, we have Collins Onwegbo, Chairman, SATHNG. We have the founder of Digital Evolution, Scott Eneje. Also, founder Open Innovation Access, Shola Adekoye. And to moderate the Creative 2030, envisioning the next decade for Lagos's creative economy, is David Afolayan, Content and Chief CEO at Tech Next. So there you have it. We have the master classes wrapped up with the breakout sessions. And just as Joe mentioned, item 7 will be taken care of during these sessions. So please don't be in a hurry to leave. We have about 30-45 minutes for these master classes / breakout sessions. And after that, we'll be bringing the first day of Aot Lagos 5.0 to an end. We want you to get home to your destinations on time, so you're back here bright and early for day 2 of Aot Lagos 5.0. So one more time, in the Expo Hall, we have the first breakout session, the digital wave, powering creative economy, creative innovation in Africa. We also have at the back of the hall, unlocking the creative currency, the power of digital content.
And also not forgetting to creative economy, navigating IP policies and regulations. There's IP policies and regulations. You want to know how to navigate that before you engage. What are the laws that will protect you or that will harm you? It's just at the back. And here on stage, let's also quickly make this correction. The Honorable Commissioner, that's Bishop George. Yes, I got that. He's actually the Honorable Commissioner, Economic Planning and Budget. He's going to be here. So he'll be here with a host of amazing panelists as well. The theme for that is envisioning the next decade for Lagos creative economy. All right, so if you're interested and you want to know what will happen to Lagos in the future, this is where you are to be. Let's also announce that the master classes will also be adjoined to this breakout sessions, and then lunch will be served here. So wherever you are, either you're here, you're there, you're inside the hall, lunch will be served all together. So please, we'd like to invite the panelists to join us here where we stand, the panelists for this particular breakout session. We're going to run through their names again. I'm going to start off first with the moderator. David Afolayo, are you here? Can we have the moderator, David Afolayo? Oh, great. Please come forward so you can actually take your seat and have your microphone handy, or better still, get ready. For those who will be using the headsets, let's also announce for the headsets, it will be going round. So wherever sessions or breakout sessions we find ourselves, we do have the team. They're going round to ensure that the headsets are equally being shared. So please be much aware that this will be done. Let's also mention here that founder, Open Innovation Access, Shola Adekoye as well, will join us here on stage. Do we have them? Great. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. We expect you to be here on stage as well with us. Founder, Digital Evolution, Scott Eneji, to also join us here on stage. Mr. Scott.
And do we have the chairman of SAF NG in the person of Collins Onwegu? Do we have Collins Onwegu? If you are in the hall, we'd like you to come on stage. Also, the founder and chief executive officer, Pirano Energy, Bola Ogidon. Please join the other speakers on stage. Ambassador Dr. Queen Blessing Ebigbesin, National President, Association of Movie Producers Nigeria, AMP. We also have the Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Planning in the person of Moshope Folu George.
I'm representing Collins.
Also, we'll make to know that we do have representing Collins Onwegu Ndubisi Obeche. He's here, he's taking his seat as well. All right, thank you. So they're adding that, they're adding one more. So, of course, we're waiting for that. Sincere apologies. Yes, please, let's have that. Thank you so much. All right.
Right now, the usher